Hi, everyone, and welcome to my live reading of my book, Survived by a Memoir in Verse and Other Poems. Today is the 5-year anniversary of my father's death, and to pay homage to him, I'm going to read this book cover to cover. I've been having really bad arthritis in my hands, so I'm going to read it off my computer instead of trying to hold it. All right. Survived by For My Father, the Big Dipper, Terry R. Wells. These lines helped me survive. Do what you need with them to survive too. Draw on these pages or tear them out. Carry a poem in your pocket or give it to someone else. Cross out my words and write your own. Make a collage. Use them as kindling. Just show me what you create. I wrote that invitation hoping that people would do it, and so far no one has. So maybe you. September. Where is the how-to guide for tragedy, the textbook for Grief 101? What to expect when you're expecting someone you love to die? How do people learn what to do when their father has stage 4 lung cancer? Have experts established scientifically proven steps? Perhaps step 1, stop breathing as electric burning emanates outward from your sternum. Step 2, feel as if seashells have been placed over your ears. Step 3, tremble like a rescue dog on the 4th of July. If you've made it to step 3, good job, you're doing great. This is your life now. The night my mom calls to tell me the news. I have plans. A Tinder date with a guy who is totally fine. Supposed to go to my friend's art gallery opening, but I haven't received any confirmation from him. Even though I'm still on the phone with my mom, I send him a text, which I still find, to this day, to be very generous. And I still do. Hey, I don't know if you were planning on going to the opening or not, but I'm not going to make it. I just found out my dad has terminal lung cancer, and just to be transparent, I was already totally dead on the inside. Now I'm even deader, which I didn't think was possible. Anyway, I don't have the capacity to make out with someone on a regular basis right now. Take care. He calls me. I hate when strangers call me, and he is a stranger. I am still a stranger. He's known me for 2, maybe 3 weeks, so there's no way for him to know I hate when strangers call, or that I think we're strangers even though we kissed once, or was it twice? Or for him to know anything about me. I decline the call. He leaves a voicemail. I hate when people leave voicemails, strangers or not. My voicemail message specifically says, "Please hang up and send me an email or a text." Before I hang up with mom, I try to ask her, what should I do? The words can't wrestle themselves out from the weight of my wails. Honey, I can't understand you. Say it again. My mom sounds as if this is a normal conversation about my work or the dogs or the latest hurricane to Bronco toward the East Coast. Should I come home? I say louder, taking my time to cradle each word in my mouth, to roll each letter around my tongue like a lozenge. Sure, you can come home whenever you want. Her tone still sounds like she is responding to, "Hey, I have nothing better to do. Would it be okay if I come home for a visit?" And not, "Should I come home to be with dad before he dies?" No, no, no! Frustration barrels out from the pit in my stomach. She isn't understanding, or is pretending not to. Should I come home to be with you guys? If it's going to be 6 months, I'll quit my job, sell my things, leave Wyoming. I'll come to Florida and be with you. But if it's going to be 5 years, honey, mom interrupts, and I hear the strain in the clench of her molars. It's not going to be 5 years, honey. I can't breathe. Burning chest, seashell ears, Rescue dog knees. I have a new life I never expected to have. Naive or delusional, everyone loses their parents, or their parents lose them first. Everyone experiences loss. But I wasn't supposed to. I listen to Tinder Guy's voicemail after I say goodbye to my mom. Hi, Emery. Yeah, long day. I'm sorry to hear about your father. That's obviously shitty. So I'm not sure how you're feeling in general. I got your text. Yeah, whatever. No worries. But give me a call when you have a few. I'd like to talk. Take care. I hate him. I send another text. I still regret it. Hey, you are nice and funny and handsome, and I mean this as nicely as I can. Please go away. He responds with a question mark. You're going to have to rephrase that. I block his number. He is a perfectly fine person, and I'm sure he only wants me to be kinder to him, but I cannot give a fuck about his feelings when my bones are liquefying into acid, rotting my organs, my muscles from the inside out. And honestly, when I think back to that guy, he wasn't that nice. We went on a few dates, and I don't think he asked me a single question about myself. So he got what he deserved. I'm hoping that he found someone nice who was better for him than me. I text Bert. Bert's real name is Robert. I call him Bert. Only I call him Bert. And he didn't even like it in the beginning. Maybe still doesn't. I called him Bert anyway. I call him Bert anyway. Because I liked it. Because I like it. Liked to feel different, special. Because he was different, special to me. We dated before, but he wanted too much too soon, and I startle easily. Like a cat rescued from the pound, I will not go near a kennel without spitting and drawing blood. But he kept leaving cans of tuna on the porch, and I kept coming back, avoiding his touch, scurrying away if he tried to get too close again. Would you want to come hang out with me while I sob? He has no reason to say yes, but I have nothing to lose, not even shame. I'll be there in a minute. Maybe I'll elope with him in a hot air balloon one day. I'm lying in bed with Bert, watching Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, hating existence, hating everyone, hating even Bert. I'm a fearful person, not a hateful person, normally, before. Maybe this is me now, under the shadow of impending loss. A person who feels contempt toward those who show her love, even toward Bert, who deserves someone who can love him back and doesn't deserve to be hated just for living, for breathing without any effort, especially when I asked him if he would breathe next to me, the louder the better, who brought my favorite snacks with him, nothing that requires cooking. He knows how I hate cooking. How could I be so full of rage toward this gentle man who has done nothing, nothing to hurt me, not even unintentionally? I'm waiting for my Advil PM to kick in, watching Voldemort kill Cedric Diggory. Despite being dead on the inside and despite my illogical temporary hatred of Bert, I'm grateful I'm not alone. I'm grateful Bert either cares about me this much even when I am a living nightmare, or he is also so hollowed out by loneliness that even filling the emptiness with me will do. Maybe both. Two things can be true at the same time, after all. And if two things can be true at the same time, can't I be both grateful to not be alone and to have Bert breathing next to me at the same time as being full of anger and resentment toward every human being, including him? Perhaps then, step one, skip denial, go straight to anger stage, the anger stage of grief. Step two, not just anger, but fury, rage, wrath. Step three, become paralyzed with bitterness. The next day, Sadie shows up at my house unannounced. I thought I hated when people turned up at my house unannounced. But like with voicemails, Maybe it's only when strangers turn up unannounced that I hate it. Sadie isn't a stranger. She's nearly a decade younger than I am, but full of the kind of wisdom that sits in the mind of a person 4 times her age. Wisdom that often goes ignored because she wears floral summer dresses and not pantsuits, because she's a barista and not a barrister, because she says like, and you know, and ends declarative sentences with question marks, and because she is a woman in her 20s. She has a bag of ready to eat groceries with her. Like Bert, she knows I hate cooking. The other day, I took a picture of a spider living in a web on my stovetop. The other day, when I could laugh at myself still, when I could laugh at all still. Last year, Sadie lost her brother in the middle of the night as he slept. 21, no drugs, no alcohol, no known cause, no closure. Her best friend, her person, kidnapped by death, truly stolen from her world without warning. When it happened, I read all of her blog posts chronicling her grief. I read articles and watched videos about how to care for someone living through loss. Was I studying for a test I didn't know I was going to take? Last year, I bought her family ready-to-eat meals from the supermarket, signed a bereavement card. A year later, she's bringing me frozen pizza, toaster waffles, and ingredients for smoothies. Sadie sits with me on my sofa, listens to me cry, cries herself, listens to me scream, screams herself. She tells me of her journey to rebuild her bones after death detonated an atomic bomb in the center of her world. I decide in that moment, the only people I want to talk to are those who have had their core sliced, carved like a Christmas ham. Sadie leaves, and I call my mom to hear what the update is, if my dad has left the hospital yet. I expect to hear her crisp hello, but am greeted by my father's voice, what's left of it. Each word is a whisper with an extra gasp of air to give the syllables enough force to exit his mouth. Hello. His voice, small like a votive's light, has the same sing-songy intonation it has always had. Hi, Daddy. My knees fold beneath my weight, as if they're suddenly made of paper. I slide to the floor, unable to even make it to a chair. How you doing? He asks, as if it were any other day, any other life, as if his throat wasn't clawing for air. I'm awful. My words garble. My face contorts, a gargoyle, channeling tears away from my chin. I'm awful. I mouth it again, inarticulate. I want to shout it loud enough for him to hear the vehemence. Do you hear me? I'm awful. Awful. But only the moans of a terrified daughter resound. It's not that bad, he wheezes. It's not that bad? What the fuck is he talking about? It's not that bad. This isn't sad. I'm old. I'm old. I've had a good life. My dad is almost 75. He smoked cigars for 30 years, and when he ended up in the hospital with his blood oxygen level in the 70s, needing machines to help him breathe, I knew. We all did. But the official bad news came 5 weeks later on September 13th, a Friday. I can't stop envisioning the high school track across the street from the house where I grew up. Dad walked laps there at night with his cigar. If my sister and I walked over to meet him, we'd know where he was based on the glowing red ember bobbing in the dark. This seemed so normal to us then. A middle-aged man power walking, sneakers tied, sweatpants, t-shirt, sweatband around his forehead, puffing away at a cigar the whole time he was getting in his cardio. We bought him cigars for his birthday and Christmas and Father's Day. And now he will never walk me down the aisle. My future kids won't know what it is to be loved by their grandfather, to be held in his arms, to sit on his shoulders, to hear his jokes, his stories, his wisdom. It's harder to read that part now that I have my son in the world. Mom, e- Mom emails me a picture of Dad to show me how good he looks, how he's doing fine. I see my grandparents' faces in his. We were supposed to go on a family vacation. We started planning, started saving. Now I'm selling my belongings, making arrangements to work remotely, receiving reminders to cherish every moment. I'm asking people for their advice, then upon receiving it, I restrain my frothing screams. Fuck you and your goddamn fucking advice, you cancer-free assholes. How badly my tongue wants to spit a torrent of resentment at every Tinder date, past and present, every ex-lover who couldn't properly love me, every ex-lover I couldn't properly love, every friend who was no longer my friend, anyone who had ever done me wrong, even every acquaintance, every colleague, every well-meaning friend who had done nothing to hurt me, even my good friends who I called to sob to, who listened to my sobs, who were kind and wonderful, just everyone, even my dog. No, not my dog, actually, but everyone else, even the people I truly, deeply love, even myself. Please, just fuck off. So maybe that's step one. Step one, fuck off. I'm glad I had handkerchiefs. I knew I'd need them. The tumors spread across the maps of his lungs, like spider webs caught in a rainforest. A mother fighting to protect her young in the pouring tempest, digging her fronds into his chest, branches cinched in a silken corset, a legacy at risk with each gust, rigging a gridiron of wind and leaves the night of Friday the 13th. No unknowing. Hedda canis minoris, a rib cage, after Athena Lou. We find our own meaning through the stories we tell ourselves. Our brains swear we live between two carved ears, or our hearts insisted from the beginning that this is a lie, passed on for centuries. We must propound the words splayed on ossified elements into existence like a child's make-believe world. We can, must, will ourselves wild like Holocene beasts, rid ourselves of time like the dogs who learned to croon in the key of Canis Minor had done ages ago. I don't know what's true and what's a fairy tale letting me feel settled, stable, or free from dying. But I choose settled, stable, and free for now, since I've never been quite sure what's true after all. Our hearts lie splayed like wild dogs had a free for all. The ribcage is an interesting poetic form. I've demonstrated it on my show, The Joy of Poeting, invented by Athena Lou. It's alternating lines of 12 syllables followed by a single syllable word in brackets. And then at the end, you read the bracketed words um, called the spine. Am I still a child playing in the chapel pews, missing the message? All you will have is your resentment packed in a suitcase. Your hungry dog on a leash when you ask the universe, am I a bad person? She will not respond. You will keep talking. I think I must be a bad person because people only go out of their way to fuck over bad people. Is that why this is happening to me? The universe will give you a glance, red lip, eyebrow raised, then ask, who are you? It's not personal. Cast iron sky seals a chlorophyll tunnel, cornstalks waving hello as they whisper, so long. Squint, hypnotized by honey dashes, daydreaming of the prayers each ear sends into the ether, if they might, if I asked, use their spears as steeples, form an acres large congregation to build a miracle out of meager material. One week later. It is easy for me to be honest, to be straightforward about my feelings, especially if asked a direct question, not of the romantic variety. It is easy for me to give compliments, to provide words of affirmation when they are due. It is easy for me to set boundaries or to ask for help. It is easy for me to complain or to give my honest opinion when asked for it. It is harder for me, in fact, to keep my feelings inside. My sister and I mirror each other in this way sometimes. We are best friends, even though I live in the Teton Mountains and she in the DC suburbs. One of my favorite memories of her is when she called me to say, I'm about to do one of my favorite things. Play Scrabble? No. Make a spreadsheet? No. What is it? I'm about to write a letter of complaint. I know many people who suffer in silence. They will tolerate anything or anyone to be a good sport, to not disrupt, to not be a nuisance. My dad, if you ask him, what do you think about Todd? And he thinks Todd is a real jerk with a capital A, as we say in our family. My dad will pause. After taking a breath, he'll say, Todd's okay. My dad embodies Robert Brault's quote, Today I bent the truth to be kind, for I am sure of what is kind than I am of what is true. We all want to help him, and he says, Am I happy? Am I asking for help? Well, no, you're not asking for help, but I don't think you would ask for it even if you wanted it. My father and I are both the youngest born children in our families. In a way, I was raised with three parents, my older sister always wanting to mother me instead of sister me. I wonder if my uncle tried to father my father instead of brother him. I wonder if my petulant complaints growing up rang familiar to my father's ears from his own upbringing. I can do it myself. I don't need help. Leave me alone. When I tell Mom I'll be driving out to Florida with Bert and Bella Bird, my dog, in October to help care for Dad, she asks, What, like for a couple of weeks? No, not for a couple of weeks. Hi, Dad. Yes, I'm uprooting my entire life in order to move in with you and live with you indefinitely. I know you didn't ask for this, but this is your slash my new life now. Sorry, not sorry. I don't understand not asking for help when I need it because I did not inherit the don't be a nuisance DNA. No one ever has to guess if I'm happy or not. They will know by the confetti cloud of cartoon hearts billowing from my eyes as I pirouette through the air like a monarch on its migratory journey home. Or if not, I will engulf them in my molten lava, envelop them like a fire god's wrath on a village that did not perform their yearly ritual to keep me from wreaking havoc on their crops. They will know. I will tell them, even if it's inconvenient. Newsflash, I am suffering, and my suffering is consuming me. I want everyone to know. Hey, does everyone know I'm suffering? Hey, you, do you know? Do you know that my dad is going to die and I am suffering? No, no, no. He is not suffering. I'm suffering. You didn't know? Well, I am. How about you over there? Did you know? Hey, stop walking away from me. I am trying to tell you how much I am suffering. When I'm sad, it is hard for me to keep it in. Even harder for me to not do everything in my power to make myself sadder. I don't know why I do this, but I do. When I got the news, my mind went straight to who and what I don't have in my life. Mostly who. Like my ex, AJ. Our sparring words have long died and seeped into the soil, overtaken by mushrooms and earthworms, and still he would never have sat with me while I sobbed, would never have brought me groceries, would never have held me in his arms through the night just to be there for me if sex weren't on the table. or the couch or the floor. Even if I asked him outright if he would comfort me, especially if I asked him outright. For the brief time we were involved, anything I asked was interpreted as making demands. Maybe this is what happens when one self absorbed idiot dates another. And I know if I were to ask him to be here for me now, to just sit with me while I sobbed about my father dying, he would, like he always has, in so many words, say no. The week before my dad's diagnosis, when I thought I was going through a hard time then, after Bella Bird broke her leg playing fetch, I asked him if he could come be with me when I wanted the comfort of a familiar voice, familiar scents and fingertips, the heartbeat of someone I used to love, someone Bella loved. He said no. He says no every time. He said no even when we were together. Like watching the tragic scene of a 1990s drama, no matter how many times I watch, the same bitter ending repeats itself. It's almost as if I keep rewatching just to prove myself right. And if I consult with my wise mind, it will affirm that his no is actually a gift. Replete with the kind of on again, off again turmoil inherent with two people whose only common interest lay between the fitted sheet and duvet, I'm not sure why I thought perhaps after having split up, we'd forge a friendship of laughter and meaningful conversation, vulnerability and understanding. I don't judge him for saying no. Maybe that's a lie. I don't want to judge him for saying no. Maybe my logical mind understands and my emotional mind still holds it against him. My logical mind knows he owes me nothing, and he's made it very clear. Knows he has no reason to be present for me other than empathy, which he has also made very clear he doesn't owe me either. These are just facts, but my emotional mind takes over the facts and wrenches the bolts on my heart a little bit tighter. I wish I could go back in time to my life before the news, before my eyes would seek the arms on the clock like a tick just to calculate. A few minutes ago, my life was different. An hour ago, I didn't know. 24 hours ago, I had no idea. My life was about to change forever. Friday, 1 week later, I have a moment of normality when I first wake up. Just a moment, a single moment before remembering. At this time a week ago, I still didn't know. For the rest of my life, I will never not know. This will never not be my reality. I know that instead of focusing on the people whom I don't have in my life, I need to focus on the people I do have. I asked for help on social media. Even though I have never entered any of these friends' homes, I don't know their birthdays or middle names. I don't know their favorite foods or whether they're allergic to dogs or peanuts. But I also don't know what else to do. I can't suffer alone. I don't know what to do. I'm in shock and disoriented. Can anyone help me? Friends, strangers, loose acquaintances say, yes, we can help. Then ask, how? I don't know what to tell them. I don't mind asking for help, but I don't like strangers. Well, no, I like prancing around a room of familiar and unfamiliar faces, cutting cake and making toasts, making the most of any evening when I curl my hair and put on jewelry. I do like strangers on the surface. I don't like strangers who try to get too close too soon. I need time to decide if I want someone around. Even when I do, I don't return messages too promptly, don't ask personal questions. An invisible arm extends from my chest, palm fixed, fingers spread like 5 fence posts that hold the barbed wire taut. I need time. Months. I get used to a new person like a gift I didn't ask for. I don't know what I'm going to do with them at first. Sometimes I throw them out. Sometimes they get tucked away on the closet shelf, forgotten. But sometimes I question how I ever lived without them. When Sadie lost her will to live with the loss of her brother, all I wanted was to scoop her in my hand, tend to her like an injured bird, nurse her through an out of control situation that had nothing to do with me. How do I anticipate the needs of someone who is spinning weightless in a tornado of loss and shock when the wind has never even tousled my hair? I sent heart emojis with words that could have filled the inside of sympathy cards. When she didn't respond, I'd take it up as a personal offense. Oh no, I'm overwhelming her. I'm burdening her. She doesn't want to hear from me. Me. With that feeling of trying to help and not knowing how folded like a to-do list in my front pocket, I respond to people's heart emojis and greeting card words with, I love you so much, but I can't respond right now. Yet most of the time, I still can't manage to send even that little response. In one moment, I interact like a well adjusted human being with a friend who stops by with a coffee for me, like a person whose circulatory system hasn't transformed into a Formula One Grand Prix arena. Or else I'm scream singing along to Lizzo, even as my throat grates and burns out my friend's passenger side window. But I still can't muster a quick thanks to the guy with good intentions who sends me a text saying, Hope you have been well. I'm really sorry about your father and Bella's leg. I know you will be strong for them. Maybe I don't want the conversation to continue after that, and responding, Thanks, now please go away, doesn't feel like the right thing to do. One friend writes, I'm so sorry to hear about your dad. Is he in pain? Still such a fucking stupid question. He has to carry an oxygen tank everywhere he goes, and he's been needled and threaded and knifed and forked, told he is incurable and going to die soon, not years from now, soon. His shirts that once wrapped his belly like a tight hug now hang from his stooped shoulders as if he were a coat rack. I'd say that's pretty fucking painful. If it's not painful for him, it's painful for me. So fuck off. Another person asks, How long does he have? Answer, Fuck off. Responding particularly to people I'd like to maintain my intimate distance with feels like lighting a campfire while on the land. But Anne Marie, look outside your own pain. People you consider strangers, even though you know their names and faces, want to support you. Haven't you always ever wanted to be loved? Love is being handed to you. Take it. My friends want to help me too. My friends I love and who love me. The ones whose middle names and birthdays and allergies I know. But I don't know what to tell any of them. Yes, I'm asking for help. No, I don't actually know how anyone can help me. Do you want to listen to me scream? Jessie says yes. We drive into Grand Teton National Park with her paddleboard. She chauffeurs me around String Lake while I sit cross-legged behind her and yell, It isn't fair, my dad has cancer. She yells too. No, it isn't fair your dad has cancer. Fuck! She listens to me strategize my next steps. She says, That's a really great idea. She never says, It's going to be okay. Because, of course, it's not going to be okay. She just keeps saying, This isn't fair. This really fucking sucks. Fuck. No, it's not. Yes, it does. Fuck, indeed. Kayla, my best friend Kayla and her partner Cynthia live in New York City, across the country and across the culture from me in my rural mountain world. Kayla is not a stranger. Her middle name is Danielle. Her birthday is the day after mine. She isn't allergic to anything, but there are plenty of foods she doesn't like. Kayla and I met in the college dorms, University at Buffalo, 2007. Randomly assigned as neighbors as fate grinned to herself. Yes, randomly. 4 years later, we recreate VJ Day in Times Square when Governor Cuomo signed the Marriage Equality Act. 5 years later, we cuddle in a double-decker bus in a snowstorm in London. 10 years later, we sing Disney songs while leaning against buck rails lining the Flatirons in Colorado. She is not a stranger. When she calls me, I think, oh, it's Kayla, and not, why is this person calling me? She and Sin want to help, but what can they possibly do besides listen to me scream over the phone? They buy me a plane ticket to Florida so I can be with my dad now. Before I can drive the 3-day journey from Wyoming to Vero Beach with Bert and Bella Bird, leaving the mountains for as long as my dad is alive, I have to find a subletter and have my car repaired and arrange to work remotely. It takes time, maybe a month. Kayla and Sin's gift is more than just a flight. It's more time with my dad. Priceless time. I coordinate my connecting flight with my sisters so that we show up at the airport at the same time. My sister already booked her flight. My parents know she's on her way, but they don't know I'm coming too. We have this family expression, what do Wellses love to do? The answer is surprise people. More strangers, more loose acquaintances want to know how they can help. But I don't want them to listen to me scream, and I don't want them to buy me flights, but I don't want them to feel helpless, and I don't want them to stop asking. I tell them I hate cooking and I'll do anything to not have to exchange pleasantries with people at the grocery store or restaurant, people who will ask me, "How are you?" when it's not customary to answer with, "I've never experienced a deeper agony than I currently am, as if my ribs are made of double-sided needles and every inhale, every heartbeat feels like my organs and flesh are being pricked by 12,000 wasps." I do anything to not have to brush my hair or change out of my pajamas. So, could they please send smoothie ingredients? And could they please send kibbles for the dog? But could they please not stay to chat? They do send smoothie ingredients and kibbles, and they don't stay to chat. My dear friends from Colorado order groceries for me online and have them delivered to my front doorstep. My wonderful friend and her husband agree to stay with Bella Bird while I use my plane ticket gift to surprise my dad. A woman I have interacted with only twice, once at an open house for a yoga studio, and the second time when we both roller skated in our town's 4th of July parade, brings me a box of fresh fruit, protein powder, aloe extract, green algae, collagen, maca powder, almond milk, and other odd, lovely things for smoothies. Another woman comes to my house when I'm working late, when I'm not even home. She brings me 3 huge containers of dog food and treats for Bella. I barely know her. We met at swing dance night. We never actually spent time together one-on-one. She lives 45 minutes away, but she still helps. A woman, a distant acquaintance, who doesn't even live in Wyoming anymore, sends me $10 to help me with expenses. She just wants to help. And she does help. They all help. It all helps. Who are these beautiful, kind people who are going out of their way for me when I'm so undeserving? I keep thinking about all the people who are supposed to be the ones bringing me groceries, listening to me scream, who were supposed to be the ones to tell me this really fucking sucks, but who are not even sending messages of condolence or encouragement. These absent people must know the real me, must know I don't deserve kindness or care. These present people are only helping me because they don't know how awful I am. You can't let them find out. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, and my limbs are puzzle pieced together with Bert's. Our foreheads touch. We breathe each other's breath. He's asleep, and I'm a mess. I don't deserve you being here. I deserve to be alone and sad and suffering by myself. I haven't done anything to deserve your support or your care, and I can never pay you back for what you're doing. I picture myself as an infant rhesus monkey caged in a lab, and Bert as Harry Harlow's terry cloth covered robot. I cling to Bert for comfort and security, desperate for him to stay with me so I don't have to face it all alone. He takes a moment to fully wake up, to take in what I blurted out. I didn't have anyone when my brother died, and I wish I did. You're great, and it makes me feel good to be here for you now. It takes me a moment to fully take in his calm, articulate response. Being with me makes him feel good, even when I feel like a shuttered window, impenetrable to sun, exchanging vistas for dust and dead flies. He thinks I'm great, even though I swallow the light in each room I enter. He reminds me providing help feels good. If I can accept help, even if I don't feel like I deserve it. It actually helps the people around me who want to feel helpful, especially when they don't know what to do. Like the seeds that grow from the dust of another, the circle of help blossoms into blossoms and never ends. I kiss Bert before walking into the Jackson Hole Airport. When I walk out of the Orlando airport, I stand next to my sister, waiting for our parents' car to appear. It's an image I've never seen before, my mother behind the steering wheel. But they're laughing. They're laughing. Our surprise was a success. Then we're all laughing, the four of us, the whole drive back to Vero. My dad is not dead, but his death is a looming fact that is painfully out of place like a grain of sand in my eye. My dad sits in the side room with his newspaper, like it's any other day, any other visit. I follow and sit next to him. Dad, you look so thin. My eyes well. I bite the inside of my cheeks, hold my jaw like a carpenter grips two splinters of wood, waiting for the glue to dry. He says, I know, and I can't stop, but I'm eating 3 meals a day. If I try to speak, my wooden jaw will split apart again. I say nothing. He keeps talking. Your mother says I look good. I say nothing. When we first moved into this house, our neighbor's husband had a stroke and was bedridden. He died a while later of cancer and no one knew. No one ever saw him. So really, it's not that bad. I'm not bedridden. That'd be so hard on your mother. I'm walking around. I feel okay. I don't feel weak. I say nothing. I'm happy. I'm not depressed. I have a good attitude. I take that in. My dad knows he is going to die, and he has a good attitude about it. The dam is pried open, my teeth unclench, shards of oak and ash, my eyes unleash 8 days of grief. I do not have a good attitude. I do not have a good anything. My dad stands and gives me a hug. I remember lots of hugs hello and hugs goodbye. I don't remember hugs of consolation, hugs of comfort. He'd always been more of a shake it off kind of dad. This hug, his hug feels out of the ordinary, but we are already out of the ordinary. Well, what will ever be ordinary again? I'm not strong enough, Dad. He's so much thinner than I've ever seen him, but still so much bigger and taller than I am. I always felt so small in his hug, like a child. You have to learn to be strong. Seeing you upset makes me upset, and it'll make your mother upset. Don't let her see you like this. In other words, shake it off. Don't be a nuisance. Don't make anyone uncomfortable with your pain. Don't remind anyone of theirs. Even though death is inevitable for everyone and everything, I can't picture the pictures without him standing beside my mother. Christmas with only the three of us, my mother, my sister, and I. I can't picture visiting only my mother in Florida, going to Humiston Beach alone, finding only one perfect seashell to bring home with me without my father barefoot, hands clasped behind his back, looking out into the horizon. I don't want to picture it, this new life, a mere shadow of the life I knew before 7:11 p.m. on September 13th, Friday. And the truth is, I am not strong enough to tread water in the salty abyss as I watch the ship sail away. I am weak-hearted. I can't hold my breath for long. I don't know how to stay afloat while searching for shallower waters. I only know how to hope that my drowning will be quick. I don't know how to stand my ground as enemy forces charge at me, swords in hand. I only know how to curl up in a ball, hoping no one notices my useless body on the battlefield. But I'm lucky. I don't have to know how. I have an army of love covering me in armor, showing me how to thrust a sword, how to withstand the unseen arrows that will impale me through the chainmail, to lessen the bleeding, to survive the battle until it is my time to cause the same kind of grief in those who love me. I have a life raft of love, lashed together with each plank's sorrows, holding me through the incessant waves, soaking my clothes, clawing at my eyes and mouth. They can't keep me dry, but they can carry some of my suffering so that I can carry some of my dad's suffering, some of my mom's suffering, some of my sister's suffering. Even if the people surrounding me, helping me carry my suffering, aren't the people I would have originally guessed them to be, even if I don't feel like I deserve people's kindness, particularly Bert's, I know I need to accept it because I will plummet into the sea's silty depths without it. And my love army, my life raft, needs me to accept their help so that they don't feel helpless, just like I need my parents to accept my help so that I don't feel helpless, breaking the circle of helplessness. And that lessens the fog of guilt smothering me when I accept love, kindness, and generosity I don't feel worthy of. Step 1, fuck off. Step 2, accept help. Marilyn Unbleu, ekphrasis of Sylvestre Gauvree's sculpture of the same name. I'm blue like dead lips, like thimble fingertips no longer nimble, no longer touch the thumb one at a time, no longer tremble. I'm blue, like Patsy Cline blue, so lonesome for blue, like Myrtille skin peeled, teardrops scaling down its haunch, yearning to stain pearl, white teeth, encre. I'm blue, like vein-wrapped knuckles, train maps to ventricles, like bioluminescence electrique under the Cheshire crescent. I'm blue, like Virgin Mary's blue veil billowing in the wind, her first time a wassailin', like dark-washed jeans, like dark-washed lungs heaving in denim factories. I am bleu, like the River Seine, its color cigarette ash dissolved in old gin. What I mean is bleu. Its sound tells you everything. I'm bleu. Like the cat eye winking back at Norma Jean through the mirror on August 3rd, 1962. And I wonder, Madame Monroe, did you wish to be un-bleu too? A place in this universe. I am the ninth planet or 10th, distant, cold, orbit askew, not quite belonging, yet unable to stop, revolving around a memory of light. Maybe shooting stars are nothing but daisy petals tossed to the side as the universe wonders whether or not she's loved. Make a wish, darling. That poem just recently won a poetry in transit contest and is riding around on public buses. Diagnosis. The drought came with the volcano. Street lamps frowned through ash made dark. Homes turned into hills with chimneys peeking out the summits. We hummed as we trudged through the wreckage until our hums turned into songs. We didn't know what else to do. Tears wouldn't water the grass. Cries wouldn't call the birds home. I am the pale girl statue, arms raised, afraid of the ocean overcoming her lungs with salt. I am the driftwood boat, filled with flowers and bones, awaiting the arrow flame to sink me waves away. I didn't love the title of that poem, but I didn't know what else to put, and that's what came out. Maybe if I revisited this poem, it would have a different title. 4 quatrains in a line in acceptance of begrudged hope. And we all know our pulses will stop, stretching out our skin, Someday we'll no longer inhale guilt, exhale regret. We'll sleep without steeping our sheets. Won't we let these trite affirmations of stone peek out from the river eddies? Let them show us how to overcome the current? Yes. We invite the hooks to lodge between our shoulder blades, hold our skeletons at attention, invite another under our chins. Here we are biting back the bitterness toward the unknowing stranger who greets us with a sing-song good morning in the slush, sleet seeping into our socks. We welcome the cardinal who appears on the fence or mailbox or telephone wire. Its relentless call, waiting for us to answer, for us to say good morning to you too, waiting for us to say anything, to do anything at all. October. I haven't even written it yet, but I'm already annoyed by what I'm going to write. Cling to gratitude. I am an empty box, flattened and discarded. Boiling tomato sauce staining the countertop and floor. A wayward cinder that found its way to a Californian forest in the middle of July. I hate that my dad has terminal cancer is my new normal. A little less than a month has sprinted by since I found out my father had a year to check off whatever boxes remained on his to-do list. 11 months and 3 days left. This is now my life. This is now his life, his death. In the last less than a month, I have cried until my irises scraped like sandpaper against my lids. I have screamed like a hammer on piano keys. I have collapsed in the shower, let my body lay splayed in self-pity and in grief. I have fallen asleep crying. I have woken up crying. I have gone to work in my pajamas, but at least I went to work. I have cried in individual therapy. I have cried in group therapy. And yes, I go to both, and I hope I'm better for it, but I suspect I am still a nightmare, just with less money. I am a ghost town. My body still exists among the remnants and relics, but no one lives here anymore. The locals moved out with the post office. The shelves at the corner store stand as tombstones marking the prices of items that once waited for hands to toss them in their basket. Spiders and the remains of their kills fill the fluorescent lights. The crows don't even stop on the wires when they fly over. I am a ghost town. But I have also smiled. I have also laughed. I have also blushed when a handsome man put his hand in my hair. I watched my friends sing Bobby McGee better than Janis Joplin ever could. I took a swing dance lesson. I admired art and went to the movies. I curled my hair and put on makeup for a fancy dinner date. I kissed a stunning man in the snowy street. And it's all been done with a plastic bag over my head, duct taped at the neck. When my dad found out the news, he said, I'm happy. I've had a great life. I've been married to my best friend for 42 years with no drama. My kids never got into any big trouble. I've traveled, I've done good work, I've helped my communities, and I'm not sad or angry. Then he said, I'm happy. He's happy. He's happy. I am not happy. I'm a cut-out paper doll version of myself covered in maggots. Yet I have found that through the maggots, I am still capable of joyful moments. I can still find glimmers of gratitude that make me feel less dead, less like I'm rotting from the inside out, and a little more blessed. I need to cling to these glimmers of gratitude to stay afloat, to not submerge further into the murk. My sadness is a 1,000-foot well. Gratitude is a rope keeping me from drowning. Glimmer of gratitude number 1. I love my dad. My close friend Lauren lost her dad to cancer, pancreatic cancer, in July of 2014. He was given a year and lived for 6, 4 of which Lauren described as really good. She and my other friends, loose acquaintances, and strangers who have experienced the brutal hollowing of loss have laid out a map for me. They have been through this journey already, and they are the ones whom I can trust to authentically help me in my own journey into the dank cave. They are the only ones who can describe the skulls lining the catacombs, the only ones who can waft the stench of loneliness, who can echo the rasp of futility. She said, "So it doesn't last forever, our lives together on earth. That's okay. It's meaningful, and I'd rather have this grief than a dad I don't talk to or hate. We both know people that have horrid parents. It's an honor to love someone so much that their sickness is eviscerating to think about." I never thought I would feel lucky to have pain dripping from my pores, pain stuck to the pads of my fingers, to the bottoms of my feet, to have pain become the core of my identity in an instant. But here I am. I'm walking my parents' beagle, Molly, when a stranger in his driveway sees me. He knows I had to be Anne Marie even before I introduced myself. He heard I'd be coming from Wyoming to spend this time with my parents, and this man, who I learned later was one of their close friends, said, "Is that Molly?" "It is. I'm Terry and Kathy's daughter." For a moment, the moment is so normal, until, "I'm really sorry to hear about your dad. He's one heck of a nice guy." As if I'm hearing the news for the first time again. Burning chest, seashell ears. Molly sniffs at the man's hands, always checking to see if anyone has a biscuit hidden in their fist. Sometimes they do. The man becomes a blur. If he says anything else, I can't hear him over my own refrain. Sobbing has become my chorus now, a wretched tune wrenched between each verse. I don't know his name. I don't know how he knows my dad, but he puts his arm around me. I say, "Thank you for saying that. He is, he is one heck of a nice guy." One heck of a nice guy. I know my reputation does not compare to that, but I aspire to be better, so that one day, upon hearing my name, someone might say, "She's one heck of a nice person." I am grateful my dad is one heck of a nice guy, that I am a 20-story building who had its first floor supports laced with explosives by his cancer diagnosis, that I am just waiting to be detonated. It is better than feeling nothing. Glimmer of gratitude number 2. I have somewhat of a warning. When my mother told me the news, it felt like my wrists had been slashed, and every drop of my blood spilled out of me. Bones and cartilage, too, every nerve and synapse. I am only a pile of fat and tissue, existing, but no longer alive. Every heartbreak, every disappointment, every romance who didn't love me, every friend who stabbed me in the back or in the front, every job that passed me over, every precious belonging I lost or broke, every financial downturn, are just dead leaves along the trail that crunch under my feet. I will at least be able to say goodbye. I will be able to say what I need to say and do what I need to do. I will be able to cherish every moment as if it's our last, because it will be. I have the opportunity for closure and peace when so many people are not granted that same blessing. Ruptured aneurysms, heart attacks, overdoses, suicides, car accidents, all plucked loved ones from this world without warning, like a child grabbing at dandelions in a yard, ripping away the petals, chanting, he loves me not," yellow dying tiny fingers like bloodstains. These thefts don't allow for the same interim period leading up to death, which conjures its own lineup of blessings and curses. I am grateful for the doom. I'd rather share my time with the dread than have no time at all. Glimmer of gratitude number 3. I am somewhat of an adult. My childhood was not cannonballed by my dad's illness. I only had to love my childhood dog, not even feed her or walk her. I earned mostly A's in school, crying if I received a B plus. No relatives abused me, physically or otherwise. My sister and I never gave each other stitches. We each were student diplomats and exchange students. She played tennis, I was a cheerleader. My childhood and my young adulthood were not interrupted by the shocking and disorienting news that I would soon lose a parent, or worse, I had already lost them without any warning. My friend Daphne lost her mother to cancer, her sole caregiver, when she was only single digits old. Her father wasn't in her life, so when her mother lost her fight against her own body, she went to live with her grandmother. But then Daphne's grandmother passed away too. It's a miracle to me that Daphne could withstand the anguish of back-to-back deaths and still grow up into an emotionally adept adult, polyglot, world traveler, published author, pedagogical guru, and now mother to her own daughter. All without bitterness swirling in her morning coffee, without acrid contempt living in her belly, like it does in mine. I think about my friend Dave, who was just a little fuck up of a kid, 21, when he lost his dad to cancer. He had to become his dad's sole caregiver after his dad had been his sole caregiver. Dave worked part-time in the day as a teacher's aide and part-time at night as a custodian for a law firm. He was working and working out his place in this world. I remember him sending me a photo of himself while cleaning the law office. He wore dress pants and a long-sleeve button-up white collar shirt. Dress for the job you want, he said. Having to enter adulthood, navigate utility bills, car insurance, and taxes at the same time as caring for my parent at the end of their life is too much for me to comprehend. If that stress wasn't enough, while Dave's dad was slowly dying at home, his emotional support, his long-term girlfriend, was finding romance in someone else's bed. He told me he knew about it the whole time, but, and I totally get this, having his girlfriend with him, even though duplicitous and deceitful, was better than being alone. I imagine my ribcage like a rusted-out wheel well in a 1989 Pontiac. But I live in my own place. I pay my own bills. I don't rely on my parents for money, and they don't rely on me for money. We only rely on each other for presence. Glimmer of gratitude number 4. I am not alone. When I first found out the news, my mind went to who I didn't have in my life. My loneliness acted as stakes, pinning my grief shroud on top of me. I risked feeling even more alone by asking Bert to come and be with me, but Bert said yes. I wonder who I might have settled for if I didn't have him, just to have warm skin against mine, just to smell someone's breath while I fell asleep. He and I met in the spring. He thought I was great, but his enthusiasm scared me like a squirrel trapped in a backyard shed staring at the child in the door who only wished to stroke its fur. He brings me flowers too often. I pushed him away. He tried to convince me not to leave. I left anyway. Most people are not like my shitty ex AJ, but I still felt relieved when Bert didn't call me names or tell me I was going to die alone. He didn't tell me how stupid I was for walking away from something so good. He just let me be. When he reached out occasionally to be friends, I declined his invitations, imagining only the shackle he could have hiding behind his back. When I started dating someone else, Bert still asked to spend time together. My acquiescence then became a kind of friendship contract we both signed. I double-checked for hidden small print, for lawyering tricks. Bert couldn't expect more if he did, and if he did, that would be on him, not me. We met for lunch and talked about the terrible people from Tinder we had gone on dates with and how the new idiot I was dragging around was still married. Bert attended an event I organized for my work. He fixed my dog gate. He helped me plan renovations to my office. He high-fived me when I dumped the married idiot. He held me as I sobbed over my dad having cancer. I had a moment of reckoning. Bert lost his title of stranger. He witnessed me eat an entire sleeve of saltine crackers that I used as spoons for a tub of butter, watched me use my sleeve as a tissue as snot dripped down my lips, then kissed those lips when I asked him to. We had emotional intimacy whether I wanted it or not. It was an accident, but no takesies backsies. When emotional intimacy turned out to not be the pit of fang exposed taipans I imagined it being, I decided I liked it after all. Maybe I only like it with him. It doesn't hurt that he's got bare eyes to match his bare hugs. I could have ended up completely alone and isolated, but I didn't. I have my mom. I have my sister. I have my dad. Still. I have a plethora of acquaintances who stepped up to help me when they had no reason to. I have an abundance of friends who have thatched together their arms just to carry me above the mud. I have Bert. Really have him. We decide to get married. No time like the present. I'll be able to have the moment of walking down the aisle hand in hand with my father after all. I am grateful to myself for pulling my head out of my ass, for being open enough to receive Bert's kindness and love. Finally. Step 1. Fuck off. Step 2. Accept help. Step 3. Gratitude. Is that a typo? That should be cling to gratitude. Damn it. Shit. How many times did I read this? How many times did my publisher read it? It's been out for almost 2 years, and I'm only noticing that now. Ay, ay, ay. I now know. As admirers stare at hibiscus, wondering how the gods created a tongue and mouth delicate enough to steep and swallow, she wills rough hands to pluck her from her stem, to end her ignored screams. They don't see how she trumpets her despair to the insects. They do not hear her over their own buzz. They don't want to know her as anything other than pretty. A body thrashes when it only needs to stand in the shallowness. Elegy, a ribcage after a themalu. I think every poetry collection I ever write will have a ribcage in it. Morning songs prod my damned chest up the mountainside like Sisyphus who cheated death too many times for the gods to accept it. Air slithers into my lungs, furled up on themselves. They search for a resurrection fern to show them the meaning of renewal. I climb on, aware of the maddening non-ending that is an antediluvian hope there'd be more than just oak urns after summiting, lifeless stone at my feet. I'm awake at 3 a.m., asleep at noon. Eyes sink, drained like hourglass sand. I hum myself a prelude, but my souls only slug their way uphill, and I cannot stop wondering what it truly means to raise the dead. Like the furled fern on an oak, I'm drained, but not dead. My father says he's not sure. He'll have to check his stash from my mother's breakfast cereal. She chuckles under her breath, swatting her hand in the air as if telling her high school sweetheart he's being naughty. In the waiting room of the oncology ward, my father tells my mother to choose a magazine that won't hurt her if she falls asleep. And her laugh leaves her mouth like a fire engine, echoing through the high ceilings, makes other withered patients turn to stare with angry eyebrows. My mother grabs her purse from the side table, tosses it over her shoulder on her way out the door to visit a neighbor, and my father asks if she is planning another domino heist. I don't know what they're talking about. I am not privy to their flirtations, to their inside jokes. I only watch the scenes and study, analyzing every interaction, observing what it looks like to share a life with your best friend, learning how it's done. My enemy will someday hold their dying love in their arms, in their crooked hole of a mouth, screaming anguished into the air will create my next breath. We will share the same chorus of pain, the unspoken song that unites us, the universal refrain that asks us to bless this world for its suffering, the only thing that builds the bridge to empathy. I wrote this poem inspired by my shitty former landlord who was being an asshole to me while my father was in hospice. And I was so angry, but had very little will to do anything about it. And yeah, I still consider her my enemy, but I know that someday she will suffer from losing someone. I should read that poem to myself more often. Build a bridge of empathy. Sepsis. I listened to my father pray for the first responders to arrive. His words sought his father to, please, Lord, let them get here soon, Lord, please. I remembered waking from a nightmare in my childhood home. My words searched for my father to, Dad, please come get me, please, Dad. He relieved my panic, walking through my bedroom door. I wished to be grown to know what it felt like to fear nothing. My father at 74 pleads for his father to come get him and wishes to know what it feels like to not have pain. And he has no fear, just as I imagined. January. We all want to collar control in uncontrollable situations. Leash a chain to its neck, wrap the links in a wrist lock grip. My family and I cannot control that my father is dying. We cannot control his lung cancer. We don't like it. We don't want it. But there's no way to undie his body. There's no way to uncancer his lungs. If only love could keep him alive, he would live forever. My mom obsesses over the guest bathroom. The sink must remain empty, bare of any hints of use. No toiletries may be visible, not even my electric toothbrush. Nothing can be left in the bathroom garbage. No tissues, no paper towels, no signs of life. As nonsensical as I find it to be, I agree to it. I don't want to fight. When lung cancer is the feral cat evading a catch pole, the guest bathroom became the gerbil my mother could ostracize to its terrarium. She can't cure my dad's cancer, but she can make sure the guest bathroom is spotless. My aunt is a Catholic Eucharistic minister. She brings communion to my dad every day. Every day. It makes her feel better. It probably makes my mom feel better. Maybe it makes my dad feel better, though I suspect he participates because it makes my mom feel better and he cares about my mom more than anything else. My sister takes time off work every month to be in Florida with us. She and my mother work morning through night to pack up a life's worth of belongings and memories. Evenings watching Jeopardy and drinking wine, game nights and inside jokes move to their new one bedroom among the many identical units within their independent living facility. Years of piano lessons, world traveling visitors, and ancestors' lives find their way into a storage locker. Christmas ornaments, knickknacks, and garden decor find new homes through Goodwill. Losing lottery tickets, kindergarten finger paintings, and unfinished crafts die in Tuesday morning's trash pickup. My sister can't cure our dad's cancer, but she can sort 7 decades of a life, set the destinies of its contents into motion. Bert takes time off work too, to stand next to me, sit next to me, lie next to me, next to a dry, rotted log. Even though I'm joyless, sexless, loveless, even though things in many ways have been less between us. He repairs the broken tiles on the counter in my parents' old house, the house they retired to, the house they were going to live in until they died. Here they are, living out their plan. Bert paints their front door, and everyone who visits asks if they bought a new one. He patches the holes in the walls where their art used to hang, rehangs their art on the walls in their new apartment. He spoons me at night and listens to me cry. Doesn't tell me it's going to be okay. Doesn't tell me how things could be worse. I can't yell at my dad's cancer, so I yell at Bert. Sometimes he yells back. Mostly he doesn't. He is my gerbil to contain, to handle when I feel like, then put back in his tank. I don't know what we're doing, but I suspect we wouldn't be getting married if my dad weren't dying. I wonder if he's only marrying me still because my dad is dying. I suspect he is. Makes me love him more. I wonder if we both have the same thought of going through the motions, of giving everyone something to look forward to instead of fear. We'll quit the masquerade once it's over. I don't ask him. Worry cowers my tongue behind my teeth. I want my father to see me in my mother's wedding dress, to die knowing I did it, that I won't spend the rest of my life keeping anyone who wants to love me an arm's length away, even if it's a lie. Bert can't cure my dad's cancer, but he can be helpful. Make sure my mom doesn't have to hire out household services. He can't cure my dad's cancer, but he can smile in front of my parents, sit next to me on the couch, holding my hand, my head on his shoulder, even after I spent the day not making eye contact with him because he wouldn't tell the Starbucks barista he asked for an Americano instead of a macchiato he received, and wouldn't drink it because it was too sweet, and wouldn't let me tell them either. It doesn't matter when my father is dying. Anger drips from my brow, and I only have Robert to pat it dry. Perhaps he is my guest bathroom, my daily communion, my piles labeled for storage, donation, or trash. We're never aware of our own nonsense. I control my presence and my dad's presence, resigned from my job even though they made allowances for me to work remotely, then half-time, then quarter-time. It's hard to give a shit about budgets and board meetings, payroll deadlines, and grant applications when your idol's eyelashes flutter away in clumps. All those unwished wishes wasted. I try to control my dad's skin, destroyed by the chemo, particularly on his hands and feet. Every night for months, I rub his feet with Aquaphor, his back, face, and hands with lotion. I don't know if it does anything, or if he enjoys it, or if he knows that I just need something to control. His cancer stole the feeling from his palms and his fingertips. He can't hold utensils, so I hold them for him. He can't hold pills, so I feed them to him. His new life of constant sitting has worn away the skin behind his thighs. Even the little of him that remains is too heavy for comfort. I buy him the most expensive cushions for his wheelchair and recliner. He yells at me about the cost. I tell him it costs nothing, that they fell off the back of a truck. I am here in Florida, left my mountain life behind, as if everything I built for myself there meant nothing. Because it did, in comparison to my father's life, the wealth of time I had squandered for so long, never thinking one day the coffers would run dry. I can't cure my dad's cancer, but I can make sure his skin is moisturized. I can make sure he gets his medicine. I can make sure he has the best cushion. I can make sure that he is never alone when my mom is busy deciding whether her belongings are meaningful enough to keep or if they should be thrown away. My sister and I can't cure our dad's cancer. We couldn't control that he was too sick to go to the restaurant where my mom had a reservation for her 70th birthday. But we could order lobster tail dinner takeout and a birthday cake for her last birthday my dad would share with my mom or with any of our family members. We can't cure our dad's cancer, but we can be here. My dad's oncologist recommends he no longer pursue treatment. She can see his withered body and spirit. We all can. My mom can't control my dad's cancer, but she can schedule an appointment with his pulmonologist for a second opinion, like a child asking their other parent for permission to go out on a school night. The pulmonologist says my dad can continue treatment. So we go. My mother, my father, and I. for a follow-up with his oncologist, who plans a new regimen. Instead of 3 chemo drugs, only one will course through his cells, raze every village in its wake. No hostages, only casualties. Whether one militia poisons the water or 3, the fish still all die. My dad asks, "What is it going to do for me?" The oncologist explains to him, to us, how the drug works, details the physiological responses. She and my mom discuss what the second cycle of chemo will look like after that, and I watch my father stare at the ground, the slightest shake of his head. Like a sycamore leaf in November, stem whimpering as it held onto its branch with a weakening grip, I witnessed the moment my father was ready to let go. His vocal cords are as paralyzed as the rest of his body. He can't speak any louder than a whisper. I can see him try to interrupt, see fatigue overtake his attempt. He has been sitting upright for over an hour, a long time for him. The exhaustion shows in his shoulders hunched like a sunflower under an overcast sky. I interrupt for him, say what I know he wants to say. "Dad, is this what you want to do?" Mom and the oncologist stop talking. "Or would you rather not?" He looks at my mom with welling eyes, says, "I'd rather not." She cries into her hands. He says, "I'm sorry, dear, I'm sorry." As if he is letting her down. She spent 4 months of the bout rubbing his shoulders in the corner of the ring, encouraging him. Anything is possible. Anything. But it's not her body he has to peel off the ground after each blow. Not her cauliflower ears. Not her bruised kidneys. It's not her blood he spits out. I cannot cure his cancer, but I can rise from my chair, put my arms around both of them, rub my forehead into his arm. I can say, "You don't need to be sorry for being lovable," which he is, loved by everyone. Fears fill the oncologist's eyes too. I see the clench in her jaw, watch her swallow the bitterness of her profession. Not everyone can be saved. She agrees. Continuing treatment will make his life worse. She can't cure his cancer, but she can be honest. I can imagine her going home that night, crying into the arms of the person with the wedding band that matches hers. "I couldn't save a patient today, and he's one hell of a nice guy." My dad can't cure his own cancer, but he can control how he spends the life he has left. The oncologist refers him to hospice. She can't cure his cancer, but she can control whether he's comfortable. Now everybody's goal is to control whether he's comfortable. The oncologist says, "I'm going to prescribe that you do something you love every day." Today we watch the Australian Open. Dad loves tennis. And we wait. We can't control my dad's cancer. We can't cure it. But we can watch ESPN with him. We can make sure one of us is in his room every minute of every day. I sleep in the chair in the corner of his room each night, not sleeping. Leave in the morning when my mother arrives so I can feed and walk my dog, feed and walk myself. Sleep in my parents' bed for an hour, cry in my parents' shower for an hour. I can't control my dad's cancer, but I can control my hatred, resentment, and bitterness, vindictiveness, contempt, and despair. These emotions take me away from my dad, transport me to the past and the future where he does not live. So I control them, at least in front of them. at least in front of him. Step 1. Fuck off. Step 2. Accept help. Step 3. Cling to gratitude. Step 4. Maintain control. Holding the shell of the man he used to be to my ear, his tidal voice crashed ashore, calling me to watch a nest of turtles break free from their sandy womb, frantic to find their ocean mother, a race from first breath to moonlit waves. I will remember you this way, I promise. After Andrea Gibson. This was the first poem I ever wrote. I wrote this poem when my dad was rushed to the hospital with pneumonia and sepsis on top of his cancer, and I thought that he was going to die that night. And I stayed with him in the hospital on the little sofa next to his bed while he was unconscious and hooked up to all the machines. And for some reason, I wrote a poem. This, the basis of this poem, it went through revision, but the basis of this poem. And that was the beginning of the rest of my life. This was also the first poem I ever had published in a literary magazine. It's a very special poem. Stone-faced on this stone sink, his full moon head stared as empty as my stolen breath. He learned anew how to worship like a boy among candles and wreathed flowers, the way Mary prayed below 6 crossed feet, her 2 lungs anchors in a porcelain basin. Remembering December. I can't remember what I said to my father in his wheelchair after he returned from Humiston Beach for what we knew would be the last time. I remember how he described the sunset with his eyes closed, clinging to the fire colors waltzing across the ocean surface in his memory. How he quaked his hand, recreating the refracted beams dancing onto the caverns of his face. But I can't remember what I said in response. If I expressed how glad I was he had a final visit, if I acknowledged how important the moment was as death sprinted for his etiolated body. I hope I said the right words, but I can't be sure. I've let others down more than once, and I've let myself down more times than that. I scream at the ocean, why, why? And with every wave breaking on sand, she replies, shh. I stand at the lectern of the church looking out at all of my friends, looking at all of my father's friends, and my sister, my mother, my aunt, my Bert. I wear a white dress I bought in October from Goodwill for $6 because when I paraded through the living room displaying my thrift shop finds, my father said, "Wow, great dress." White with crimson and navy flowers cinched at the waist, short sleeves. I will not wear my mother's wedding gown, will not walk hand in hand with my father down the aisle. Instead, I walk hand in hand with Bert down the aisle behind my father's casket. I begin. Thank you, everyone, for coming here today to celebrate my father. I had the honor of caring for my dad in his illness, had the honor of holding his hand as he transitioned from relative to ancestor. This evening, I have the honor of telling you all about his incredible life. My father was born in a small factory town in upstate New York. There, he and his brother had a standard American upbringing filled with paper routes, Little League, and Boy Scouts. He was proud even late in life of achieving the rank of Eagle Scout. He attended college in Oswego. Though he majored in physics, his stories about college almost always revolved around his time working with his friends at a horse stable on campus. For years after he graduated, he drove for 2 hours each way on most weekends to continue working there, not because it paid well, but because he loved it. In 1970, he started working at GE and developed his career over time to become a computer programmer, a position he retained for nearly 4 decades before he retired. In 1976, he met his soulmate, the love of his life, his best friend, and my mother on a blind date at a bowling alley. He had a bit of work to do to impress her, but his natural charm, wit, and gentle demeanor won her over. Their love and marriage has served as a quintessential example of what true love is for their children and for everyone who interacts with them. My father was a great man, not because he was a millionaire or had a fancy job. He didn't drive a luxury car or wear the best clothing. He did not hold rank, title, or office. He did not start a movement. He was a great man simply because he was kind. When I first came to Florida to be with my dad, while walking my parents' beloved beagle, a gentleman stopped me because he recognized the dog. I'm so sorry to hear about your dad. He's one heck of a nice guy. It's hard to behold the acrid taste of loss as a blessing. To recognize pain only comes from the grief of losing someone who has had such a profound and loving impact on your life. My dad was one heck of a nice guy. I ask everyone here to ask themselves, is that what people would say about you? If it's not, let me give you a few ideas of how you can earn that title based on the many wonderful things my father did for others. First, participate in every food drive, not just with a can of tuna, but with a case of tuna, an entire box of non-perishable goods. Be the reason why the food drive is successful. Be the reason the blood bank stays open. Donate blood and donate platelets. We often saw my dad with a bandage around his arm, each arm, because he donated as often as is legally allowed. Do all of the chores for 40 years and never complain. Laundry, grocery shopping, dishes, mowing the lawn, gardening, walking the dog, cleaning the litter box, shoveling snow, fixing the car. Become a recycling champion, and not just in your own home. Walk around your neighborhood, picking up the litter you see. Go to sports fields after games and pick recyclables out of the garbage cans. When you visit a cemetery, bring extra flowers and leave them at a grave that has no caretaker. Pull weeds away from the stones that are overgrown. Brush the dirt from the embossed letters that you pass. Bring your own lawnmower to tame the grass pathways and eventually buy a riding lawnmower with your own money. Become the unofficial groundskeeper, all without compensation or recognition. When you pick someone up from the airport, bring their favorite snacks and leave them on the passenger seat for them. Don't tell. Just let them find the goodies and enjoy the surprise. Keep a list of your friends' birthdays so you never forget to send a card. And when you send a card, cover it with stickers. Walk on the beach. Humiston Beach was his favorite. Say hello to everyone you pass, and of course, pick up any trash you see along the way. When your neighbor's outdoor light is out, change the bulb for them. When your neighbor down the street's outdoor light is out, change the bulb for them too. Then start carrying light bulbs in your pockets when you walk at night, just in case. If you dislike someone, simply say, they're okay. It's not weak or false, because they more than likely are okay in some way. When you're walking your dog and you see a dog mess that was not from your dog, pick it up anyway. Invite strangers into your home from all over the world, not just for a meal, but for months. Be their headquarters, a place they can return to for years to come. When a song reminds you of your partner, reach for their hand. Tell them, this song is us. Hold their hand while you listen to it together, feeling the love between you. Tell your loved ones you love them every day. Every day. Sign off your emails and your phone calls with, love ya. When you hug someone, give them a little shake. Be silly even when you're in a hospital gown, finding out what true indignity is. Be silly, make jokes, have the humility of the Dalai Lama or Pope Francis. These are just a few of the many, many examples of my dad's kindness and good nature with which we were blessed. I have hundreds more. I'm sure everyone here does. We would love to hear them. No matter how I showed kindness toward my dad, no matter how many days, weeks, months I helped care for him, it does not feel like I can begin to thank him for everything he did for me during my 33 years. No one can compare to him in selflessness. My dad was one heck of a nice person, and I pray that we all continue his legacy of kindness. Imagine the domino effect we might have on the world if we did. One person, my dad, had an impact on every one of us sitting here today. Imagine what we could do collectively for the world if we all performed an act of kindness every day. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, thank you, thank you for setting a good example. Step 1, fuck off. Step 2, accept help. Step 3, cling to gratitude. Step 4, maintain control. Step 5, remember. Eta Ursa Majoris. I felt him transition from relative to ancestor, into the breath he lost, present as he became older than the hunter's myths, older than the deities who created them. Now he follows the path of Alkaid while embodying its light, his light. When I search the sky, he watches from 4,000 light years and 4,000ths of an inch away. 11:20 p.m. My mother's voice bit my undead face like an electric eel. Her cries begged for answers, begged for air through the shock like she woke to an assassin holding a pillow to her nose and mouth. I ran barefoot to my car, my phone to my ear. Where were my shoes? I had to get to her, had to bring her to her husband. Dead. Are you sure, honey? Are you sure? Did a nurse tell you? And it took all the marrow in my jaws to respond. A nurse didn't have to tell me, Mom. A nurse didn't have to tell me. I could hear my parents' beagle whimpering, my mother's beagle. Why didn't you call me? She screamed over and over, choking between each why. There wasn't time, Mom, I pleaded. There wasn't time. There wasn't time. There wasn't time. There wasn't time. I think of the last shadows his body cast, how crematories work. Gravestone flowers. I paced my father's hometown cemetery as he pushed and pulled his lawnmower through the overgrown grass, planted marigolds at strangers' graves. I ripped dandelions with the ferocity of a child who was Anne with an E and who pretended to be the one from Green Gables, who didn't care to understand what it meant to be dead. I held the bouquet like a bride and trampled the wild blades, wondering why my dad cared at all to tend the plots of those decaying for a century. Now, with a longer life of collected memories, I know he'd always been the man to shovel his neighbor's driveway in December, to walk at night with light bulbs in his pockets to replace anyone's burnt-out porch lamps while they slept. And he couldn't let his parents' bones lie in a graveyard replete with Jumanji canopies taking over the signs that someone once inhaled this town, that someone once exhaled this town. Now I adorn my father's grave with seashells, arrange them in a circle around a ceramic frog. I carry his funeral flowers like a baby in my arms, lay one at a time across barren graves near his. And maybe visiting strangers will be touched to see a lily, even desiccated from the sun, atop their loved one's grave. Maybe this was my father's sentiment too. Maybe he thought not of those who passed on, but of those who would pass by. They would know someone cared enough. Or maybe they would think it was their ancestors' way of saying hi from the other side. And maybe, when you think about it, it was. Remains of a man. I wonder if your refrigerated flesh burned as I cried in the shower, if I reached for the tub edge, dizzy, as flames engulfed your knees and hips and feet, if that's when I watched shampoo spill the drain, clogged by my hair and spit. I wonder if a chimney coughed you out somewhere, if the sky choked on your ash one last time. I wonder if I missed your papal farewell, not knowing where to look, or if I saw your body that night, a smoke ring around the moon. My father is the heart-shaped cloud at Humiston Beach on Valentine's Day, the meteor like jade on fire breaching the stratosphere that one night. He is on the road again on the radio as fireworks celebrate the new year, 1 year greater than the one etched into his grave. He is the Big Dipper faint in the orange sky, visible for only a moment before the fluorescence of the street lamps steal him away. He is my mother's instinctive, "Go ask your father." He is the 10th of a second I don't remember that I can't. He is my right eye, hooded more than my left. My voice at the cemetery scolding my fragility as I lie in the gravel a sobbing heap of contortions. We all die, we all die, we all die. He is my hand in my hair, my breath, my throat consoling. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay. When cardinals appear. Bandit bird, thief within the cherry blossoms, stealing worries and ruminations, replacing the what-ifs with the down-slurred whistles of a long song, a soul song, a sailing song, connecting me on this earthly plane like an isthmus to my ancestors, flitting from your perch between branches, as if it means nothing at all to share my father's message from the other side. It is just another day, just another message. 12 days later. When I first began writing about this journey, I attempted to navigate my thoughts and emotions by searching for the steps, as if a how-to guide to tragedy existed. With no experience to reference, I've been living the guide the last 5 months, figuring out these 5 steps. Step 1, fuck off. Step 2, accept help. Step 3, cling to gratitude. Step 4, maintain control. Step 5, remember. Now I have come to step 6, chaotically repeat. My father passed away. On his last day on this earth, he had a really good day. As good a day as a person can have while bedridden, experiencing the role reversal of parent and child. 33 years after bathing me, diapering me, and spoon feeding me, he accepted it was his turn to be cared for. I watched my father care for my grandparents at the end of their lives, watched my father lead his mother, brain obliterated by dementia, into the upstairs bathroom for a shower, put her pajamas on her frail frame, and help her into bed. I wonder if he watched his mother do the same for her parents, if he had the same example set for him that he set for me. The nurses in hospice could care for him with kindness, but they could not care for him with love. Only I could do that, and I was honored to provide him that care. He deserved it. As my dad rested in his hospice bed, listening to music, Juice Newton's Sweetest Thing came on. I was writing the poems in this collection when movement in my periphery caught my attention. My dad, his eyes still closed, reached his hand out for my mom, seated next to him, knitting. She grabbed his hand and he whispered, "This song is us." They both let the tears fall without words. I cried, holding back any sound so as not to interrupt their moment. At the end of the song, my mother stood up and laid her chest across his. She said, "You know I love you, honey, so much." My dad whispered back, "Me too, me too." In the afternoon, I gave him a sponge bath, rubbed lotion into his skin. I shaved his face and told him his eyelashes were starting to grow back. I trimmed his nails and massaged aquifer into his feet and legs. We, as a family, were always telling each other we loved each other in acts of service and quality time rather than words alone. He had banana cream pie for dinner. We watched TV, somehow finding moments of laughter together, not knowing it would be the last time he'd laugh. A little after 11 p.m., I held his hand as he took his final breaths. I told him he was safe. I told him he was fine. I hate that I said those things, those stupid things. Of course, he wasn't fine. I wasn't thinking. Of course, I wasn't thinking. I also told him I loved him, that I wasn't leaving him. I told him he wasn't alone, that he was such a good dad. I hope I said those things more. I hope I said them and didn't shout them, as all I wanted to do was scream. Scream, "No, Dad, don't leave me." But I can't remember. I fainted. Woke up on the chair on the other side of the room. My chair. The nurse caught me when I fell, and he carried me in his arms to that place I slept every night for 2 weeks. I staggered out of my father's room and out of the building in my stocking feet, still dizzy with shock. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe I imagined the whole thing. Maybe I am drunk or high. Maybe I am escaping a hospital where I am a patient. The nurses yelled after me as I left, told me I should sit for a little bit longer, but I couldn't. I had to get my mother. She answered the phone with her sing-songy hello customary to our family, the same hello my sister uses to answer the phone, the one I used to use. I told my mother the news, and her scream shattered the entire world. I imagine on the other side of the ocean a child stopped in the middle of their game of hopscotch because they could hear my mother's ventricles and atria and valves all rendering apart. "Are you sure, honey? Are you sure? Did a nurse tell you? Did a nurse say so?" All I could say was, "A nurse didn't have to tell me, Mom. A nurse didn't have to tell me." "Why didn't you call me? I would have come over to be with him."
There wasn't time, Mom. You wouldn't have made it. I couldn't leave Dad, not even for a second, to call you. There wasn't time. And there wasn't. There really, really wasn't. And now I feel like I've returned to the beginning of all of this. I've returned to September 13th. I'm sure I answered the phone with a sing-songy hello before my mother told me my father was going to die. The burning chest, the seashell ears, the same wondering, what do I do? What are the steps? Even though I knew my father was going to die, even though it was said and unsaid over and over again, even though we knew it was his last Thanksgiving, his last Christmas, his last New Year on this planet, it still seemed impossible. I believed I was going to live in that hospice room with him for much longer than I did. And I would have. I would have lived there, eaten meals off of plastic trays, slept neck cocked in the chair, ears alert to any sound my father made. Forever. Two great pains mark my grief trail like Karen's, knowing that it was going to happen, and it happening. But unlike Karen's, I can never navigate back the way I came. These two towers of rocks come with the same guide, though, I believe. Step 1, fuck off. I unfriended over 200 people from the modest 400 friends I used to have on social media. I need this space for catharsis, to expel all of the hatred, resentment, and bitterness, vindictiveness, contempt, and despair I've harbored. Dozens of people, not just friends, but some people I barely know sent me messages of condolence. People I haven't spoken to in a decade, people from the outskirts of my life who I didn't expect would give a shit about me or my pain sent me kind messages. Those who could not perform bare minimum sympathy don't get to witness this vulnerability. It is reserved for my friends, my proven friends. No strangers, no proven strangers allowed. Step 2, accept help. My best friends helped me cancel my wedding plans. Bert and I were supposed to get married 11 days from now. Before my dad passed, I talked to the social worker at the hospice, who spoke with the building director and general manager. They both gave me the green light to hold the wedding at the hospice building so that my dad could be there, even if he attended in his hospital bed. When I told my dad about these plans, he told me, I'll try to be there. I hope he did not worry about disappointing me as he was trying to breathe. I hope, I hope, I hope. I didn't tell him we planned to cancel the wedding if he passed away. I didn't want him to feel guilty for being sick. I can't have a wedding when I don't have bones, when I don't have nerves or synapses or blood. I can't marry a person if I'm not even sure if I was marrying them out of love or out of desperation just to share a moment with my father. Bert messages me saying he has a plane ticket on hold, asks if I want him here. I tell him, please come. When he arrives the next day, I teeter in his arms like I drank a bottle of Chardonnay on my own. I'm so happy you're here, I say. My throat rasps like I'm sick with a winter cold. He drives us from the airport to my parents' my mother's apartment. He helps take care of the dogs. He helps with the chores. And we let him. No one says, oh, you don't have to, it's fine. He has surpassed the title of guest. We just say thank you. Because we need help. We still need help. I will need more help in the near future. Help finding a job, finding a place to live, finding meaning, finding joy. And I will accept the help I'm offered. From Bert, from my friends, from anyone even strangers, even those I just cut out of my life. I'll pull out the needle and thread, the superglue, the tape, find a way to mend the pieces if they reached out to say, I'm so sorry for your loss. Step 3. Cling to gratitude. It's hard to imagine I have anything to be grateful for when I can't quite make it anywhere without a pillow or blanket. I crawl to the kitchen, unable to stand upright. I open the refrigerator door and close it without taking anything. I crawl to the shower, reach for the handle from the outside of the tub, sit, shoulders leaning against the toilet. The water heats, but I turn it off before getting in, crawl back to the dark room. My hairbrush sits on the sink untouched. My toothbrush sits on the sink untouched. My clothes sit on my body untouched. I sit untouched. Day and night, my logical and emotional minds wage war against each other. I keep wondering if there was something I could have done differently the night he died, something that would have helped him, something that would have saved him. Logical mind knows that, of course, I'm not a doctor. I don't have any medical training. If I were a doctor, if I did have medical training, it wouldn't have mattered. He had a do not resuscitate order. He didn't want to be saved. He didn't want to be saved just to continue his bedridden life. Either he was going to die alone, or he was going to die holding my hand. And there's no world that exists where I would choose differently. I muster the gratitude, force it into my mind with nothingness, like the first atoms that formed our universe as we know it. I am grateful I had as much time as I did with him. I am grateful we loved each other. I am grateful we ate a meal as a complete family. I am grateful we each sat in a chair in a circle around my dad's hospital bed with plastic plates of food provided by hospice in our laps. I am grateful for the one moment that everything felt okay. I am grateful for my dad's sense of humor, for the love he showed my mom, myself, anyone who came into his life. I am grateful for the work I did in another life, caring for adults with disabilities. In another life, I bathed and diapered and spoon-fed those who needed it, was trained to do that work, paid to do that work. Like the nurses in hospice, I could provide this care with kindness until I moved on from that job onto another one, leaving the people I cared for behind. The training and experience I gained gave me the knowledge and confidence to care for my dad to the end of his life, gave him the confidence to let me. He felt more comfortable having me help him with his intimate needs than he would have felt having the young women working at hospice help him. These were nurses whose jobs it was to care for people, but they were, nonetheless, strangers. I am grateful Bert and I haven't fought, though I don't have the strength to eat a bagel, let alone fight or care about anything enough to fight about it. I am grateful to be in an abandoned building, leveled to splintered boards and wayward roof tiles. My pain is a testament to the joy my father brought to my life. Shortly before my dad's passing, I was brought to tears by an interview between Anderson Cooper and Stephen Colbert, touched by the comedian's earnestness, the expression I had never before seen on his face. I never knew he lost his father as a young boy, along with two brothers in a plane crash. He said, I want it to not have happened, but if you are grateful for your life, then you have to be grateful for all of it. You can't pick and choose what you're grateful for. What do you get from loss? You get awareness of other people's loss, which allows you to connect with that other person, which allows you to love more deeply and to understand what it's like to be a human being, if it's true that all humans suffer. The bell of truth tolled in my heart, rung by his words. I am tethered to my friends who I know have lost someone they love, by a rope I never knew even existed. The rope even tethers me to people I once disliked. A Tinder date who ghosted me, a young woman who was clearly in love with my ex AJ while he and I were dating. I haven't spoken to either of them in over a year, but I know both of them have lost a parent. The invisible binds shackle us to each other now, though they don't know it, and I probably won't go out of my way to tell them. The connection still persists. I feel disconnected, too, from the people who I know have not experienced the exposed nerves of a close loved one yanked by pliers from one's jaws. I am different from them now. They can't know the festering wound staining my teeth red, can't know the taste of salt and iron in everything I eat. I know because that once held true for me. I was the friend who felt bad, but who didn't know how terrible loss felt, couldn't empathize like I can now. But I'm still grateful for those friends whose hearts hurt for me. I'm grateful for all of the friends and acquaintances who have gone out of their way to express their sympathy. They are little bits of gauze, soaking up the blood. I have to keep repeating my gratitude, clinging to it. I am grateful I was there. I am grateful he wasn't alone. I am grateful we loved each other so much. I am grateful for Bert, for my true friends, for my dog, for my sister. I am grateful, I am grateful, I am grateful. Step 4, maintain control. I couldn't control my dad's cancer. I couldn't control his death, but I could control his tribute. I could honor him with my eulogy. I practiced in the mirror in my mother's bathroom and choked through the first sentence the way my father choked on his last breath. I read it over and over again to myself. I practiced in the car as Bert drove us to the church, chanting to myself, "You need to be strong for 8 minutes. Then you can crumble. 8 minutes. Be strong for 8 minutes." I pictured myself standing, shoulders back, chin up in front of the attendees, no quavering, no breaking. 8 minutes. 8 minutes. 8 minutes. I spoke with eloquence, so that every word resonated, so that everyone could hear about my father's life, about what he meant to the world. I'm proud I held it together to honor him well. He would have been proud too, I know, that I stayed strong for my mother. Now, though, now that the funeral is over and my father is buried, I'm having trouble with this step. In the midst of my father's illness, I controlled my presence. I controlled my rage. What do I have left to control now? I spend days not eating, then I eat an entire can of Pringles in one sitting. I spend days watching Netflix, playing Candy Crush instead of looking for a new job or a new place to live. I want to live in sci-fi and rom-com worlds, worlds made of chocolate bombs and sugar drops matching in colored patterns, away from here. I walk the dog, resent her for needing me, then love her for needing me, for loving me, even when I don't brush my hair or message someone back or put a bra on. She loves me even though I'm not looking for a new job or a place for Bert and I to live. I was sleeping on the floor when my mom walked in with her consumer cellular flip phone and told me she was talking to a bereavement counselor and wanted me to set up an appointment. I will, for her more than for me. I can control that. Step 5. Remember. Lauren, my friend who lost her dad to pancreatic cancer, once told me, "A day will come when you tell a story about some completely insane thing your dad used to do, and you'll laugh instead of cry." What does that world look like? The world where I don't unravel every time I think of him. Do cardinals visit front yards in this world? Does the Big Dipper appear in the sky between nighttime rain clouds? What would it mean about me to live in that world that I'm no longer grieving? If I can laugh thinking about my father, would that mean he never meant anything to me? If I'm no longer affected by the bullet lodged in my ribs? Well, what will it mean about me as the daughter who cared for him with her own hands? What would remembering him with joy instead of despair mean? That I've grown used to his absence? I've become numb to the father-sized hole in my heart? In September, I couldn't imagine living without my father. Couldn't imagine my life, what my life would look like without him. Now I can't imagine remembering my father without transforming into a poltergeist haunting the poor victims trying to live their lives within my crypt. I don't want to imagine, not because I enjoy the sadness, but because his death deserved to be mourned. Step 6. Chaotically repeat. There's no end to Grief Road. Instead of an exit ramp onto a new highway or a cul-de-sac, the road starts over again from the beginning. It's not a loop, but a maze without any street signs to tell you where you will be next. One moment you will be telling people to fuck off, and the next you'll be accepting help from those same people. You'll cling to gratitude, remember, then grasp to maintain control over something inane before telling someone to fuck off again. This is the road I will be riding on for the indefinite future. But at least there are other cars like mine winding their way through the maze. I won't be alone in the confusion. My father's death, my father's death is the worst thing that has ever happened in my life. Yet I will find gratitude for the fact that this suffering has allowed me to love and understand others more deeply. I will thank all of the people who have stepped up to give my car a jump, to change a tire, fill my tank, or to just say, you're navigating the hell. You're, you're navigating this hellhole so well because it all helps. It all helps. Step 1, fuck off. Step 2, accept help. Step 3, cling to gratitude. Step 4, maintain control. Step 5, remember. Step 6, chaotically repeat. I am not a whole, only disjointed pieces held together the way two ventricles taped to an aorta won't beat. Grieving. Let me know the pieces butchered in front of you, the wild and gamey breath, the scent that blends into every shirt, every sheet, the shit not suitable for sensitive stomachs, censored in front of your mother. I want to choke on sobs born from someone else. I want to feast on your grief instead, to gorge on the pain you never dared to share with anyone else, the awful tastes, the sour flavor of violence, the muscle and sinew shredded by knife and fork, one slice at a time. I have practiced not looking away from the body brutalized, split open. I can smell the blood and I'm hungry for the rot gaping from the marrow, for intestines unraveled at this table. Let's share this meal together. Let our flesh decay holding hands. Let the crows fly away with our eyes. Let the mice run away with our teeth. Grief is the ghost, appearing from the earth, erratic breaths behind my ear, a reminder of my errors and my errant endeavors. Grief is the ghost, slithering in my second skin, refusing to shed the sibilant specter, seething through its scales, the shadow seizes in the soot. Grief is the ghost, foaming at the mouth,
the phantom aura forging through the frothing furrows. It's in my pillows. It's flailing in the feathers. Grief is the ghost that still haunts my house, my living house. Oh, how it's still. Oh, how it lives. Haunted. I won't eat borscht. Not since. I used to savor the earthy taste and smell, the color of beets, but it spilled. It spilled from the ladle onto my hand, holding the ceramic bowl, cool. It was November. Then the warm red, and the warm purple of my hand. No, please no, stop, shh, stop, please, it's okay, shh, I'm sorry, please, I'm sorry, shh, please stop, no, 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 please, shh, stop, please, it's okay, no, shh, I'm sorry, the pot slept untouched in the fridge. Blue sprouts climbed the glass lid. My partner, he asked, do you want me to take care of it? And I said, please, sorry. Protection from the rain. The town was under siege by sniper fire. I fled, a ghost, a nightmare, ashamed of my own weak-heartedness for escaping without the dog, 12 years old, 8 teeth missing, limped gait, the empty leash lifeless behind her, lost amidst the hurricane of running innocence. Pulsed with cowardice, my legs broke for the lawn where you're buried, even though you are dead, even in my dreams. Even though your stone, flush with the grass, brought no cover from the metal rain, I still searched for protection by your side, lying crescent around your grave, my hands stretched wide, read the carved letters of your name. Face in the dirt, I prayed for the dog to live, bargained for her death to be quick. Oh, I remember having that nightmare. It's still so vivid in my mind. And I woke up and I was crying and my dog was lying on the bed or lying on the floor next to the bed. I felt so guilty for abandoning her in my nightmare. She has since passed away a few years ago. And I was with her too, held her in my arms. The sage is burning, but it's not enough to quell these hauntings living in my drawers, my closet, my nightstand. The smell of decay overwhelming the halls, sleeps under the bed. It crawls in the space between the stove and the kitchen cabinets. I wave the incense in the air, wild like a maestro trying to control the phantoms of brass and strings, but they hover over the bed offbeat, seep into the upholstery off-key, throw cymbals in the shower, leave piano strings coiled on the stairs. They own this place, this pit for ghosts. They wrote the notes. They keep the score. My friend James Coates read this poem for me as a promo for the book when it came out, and his reading of it is spectacular. It's on my YouTube and on my TikTok. You can go find it and listen to it. Portrait 2020. Our father sits on my shelf, a portrait on a prayer card between two paperweight giraffes. Gilded memories of a trip to the zoo a younger version of himself once took with his 2 daughters. One lies curled on its side, looking up into our father's face. The other stands, neck curved, bowed like the heads of the dead sunflowers that haven't been thrown away, hunched sentinel behind him, with their furled petals weeping in silence, one after the other. Portrait 2021.
after David St. John. The radio keeps me up, listening to the country songs that help me remember. I remember he asked me how much of me was nature and how much was nurture, how much I was willing to give, how much I was willing to give up, how much I was willing to give up. We all lionized him, acknowledged our helplessness as our king lost feeling, lost hope, but never lost us. His photo lives on my shelf in front of the same vase of sunflowers that still stand dead behind him after a year. I look at his face now from across the room, just like I did before the end catalog, each tooth, each eyelash, like I might forget, like I might write a poem that wasn't about him, like I might hold on to a truth outside of grief. I stare at nothing. I know his face is ink on paper, yet one eye is slightly bigger as it always had been. And I remember Willie Nelson quavers through the static, and I remember I'm in the first stage of mourning, writing like I'm trying to prove I'm not lying. The lamplight gilds the ink, and I remember he's still gone. I remember he's only a portrait on a shelf. I remember he's only a portrait in a poem. I remember. I remember. Maybe I should try writing a portrait 2025 and see what happens. I'm not sure what I would write. Still have my father's prayer card, but now it's in my car. And anytime something, it's in like the change area where you would throw change when people paid things with cash and coins. And when my chapstick rolls over his picture or something, I always apologize to him. I say, I'm sorry, Daddy. And move the chapstick out of the way so I can see his face. Catholicism still lingers in a concrete poem. The organ's aria rang out from the National Cathedral, quivering free the most delicate of cherry blossom. The most delicate of cherry. There's another typo, a comma where it shouldn't be. I'm going to start over. The organ's aria rang out from the National Cathedral, quivering free the most delicate of the cherry blossom petals with its chords, littering the sidewalks of Wisconsin Avenue with belated Valentines, as she took her dog out on Easter Sunday morning, alone. Too early to call anyone just to say hi, not even her devout Catholic mother. And this woman's lonely atheist heart found itself brushing her hair for her, covering her night-old eyeliner with a pair of glasses, pulling up stockings underneath a floral dress and pink cardigan, walking her, as if on a leash, the half-mile to childhood familiarity in the shape of a pew and a hymnal. Is it so surprising, though, when her heart knew she needed something, anything, even if it was only to admire Romanesque architecture and stained glass, to fall trance to the hollow murmur of responsorial psalms? She, like her mother, had held on to so much for so long, without a place for it all to go. There needs to be a period there, too. Oh, but then it changes the formatting. Okay, maybe that's why I did that. Hadn't she already spent a year pretending untruths were true for the sake of a quiet pulse and 6 hours of sleep each night? Hadn't she already wished on sidewalk pennies, dandelion seeds, birthday candles, and stars, and even nothing at all, to manifest her unrelenting daydreams into reality? What would one more try hurt? What are prayers anyway, if they are not the release of our desperate, captive hopes into the wild? Swan Song. Her wings cup, bow as if resisting, no, not bow, bow. I'm gonna start over. Swan Song. Her wings cup, bow as if resisting the lake where she seeks reprieve, like she's changed her mind, saw something she hadn't from the clouds, the way her feathers flail just before her toes settle into the cold. But she's firm in her choice. This is where she wants to be. The ending is only a chapter in her story. Some believe a swan's grace lies in her poise on the water. It does, of course. But most have never considered her ability to recompose year after each fall. Two years later, in the aftermath of my dad's death, I wrote the final step to surviving tragedy was chaotically repeat. I believed once I merged onto this grief road, there was no exit from the maze of looping tarmac and infinite dashed lines. I thought the road was the end. I was incorrect. The road is not the end. I wrote that final step 2 weeks after my father died. The newly acute pain blocked any imagination of feeling anything other than slashed, like a century-old tarp weathering a hurricane. I couldn't imagine a life in which I could think about my dad and not feel the shards of my glass shell plummet to the ground in spiny fractals. Even though I was told by those who have traveled this highway before me that I would learn to carry this pain, that the weight would lessen over time, I didn't believe them. I was different after all. My relationship with my father was different. I would carry this flesh-crushing weight forever. And I do. I still carry this heaviness. I cry as I write these words, as I think about how I have not spoken to him, hugged him, or heard him laugh in 2 years. Now 5 years. It will only be longer and longer still. 3 years, 4, 10 years, 20. The time passes, not like a bolt of lightning, but not like a tortoise either. It just passes. My cry has become another typo. My cry has become a soft cry, a pillow rather than a wrecking ball. I can hold the glass shards in place, live with their jagged incompleteness. Before and after my father passed away, my mind fixated on W.S. Merwin's poem, Separation. Everything I did was stitched with the color of my father's death. I couldn't see or feel anything other than this shadow. I didn't want to. I was not open to life, love, healing, not open to laughter, forward movement, joy. Being anything other than a breathing corpse felt like a betrayal to my father's life, like I was hiding my pain, or worse, not feeling pain at all. But with time, therapy, and poetry, the pain now lives woven in a tapestry of other emotions. It is no longer the only thread. My world is now stitched in variegated tones. I've lived to see the other side of step 6, even though I did not realize when I wrote the steps that there'd ever be a new chapter in my life beyond them. Grief Road, I've discovered, is not just swerving among lanes on an endless loop of asphalt. The end of Grief Road is healing. It seems intuitive, but in fact it is not. While I existed in the eye of grief, I never thought I would describe myself as healed. I suppose I still don't. Healed sounds so finite, as if a balloon archway and red and gold banner beam the word finish into the distance with a giant stopwatch marking the time it took for me to cross over into the land of the healed. Crowds on either side cheering with dollar store poster boards announcing, "You did it! You're healed! This way to the beer tent." I can say instead, I am more healed, that I will continue to be more and more healed as my life continues. More healed so that I can laugh at a joke or even tell one. More healed so that I could possibly be disappointed or even disappoint someone. The mind has to do what it needs to survive, after all. I am out of the I. I am more healed. I can remember loss without telling people to fuck off. I can be grateful without needing to cling to gratitude. I can accept help while not being helpless. I no longer need to grasp onto control as a distraction from my helplessness. I can remember without falling apart. But I was right, that I'm not alone in the confusion. I never was, never will be, although Bert and I didn't get married, not even later on. Instead, we returned to Wyoming and moved into a one-bedroom apartment where we struggled a lot. I quiet quit my life, doing only the bare minimum to not be fired from my job, from my relationship, from my friendships. My only interests were my dog, poetry, and rice pudding with chocolate chips in it. Bert struggled to be my hero the way he imagined being my hero. He did swoop in for me when I was in distress, as if standing akimbo, cape fluttering in the wind behind his perfectly groomed beard. But when I began to emerge from my own tomb, the one in which I buried the woman who once had a mother and a father, when I looked at life again, accepted my new role in the universe, I didn't need him to be my hero. With time and lots of therapy, I emerged from the dark infinity that was so easy to succumb to. A day would pass where I thought about my dad, talked about him, looked at his picture without collapsing into a pile of worms. As I healed, I just needed Bert to be my partner, but we never quite figured out what an everyday boring life together looked like. It was never bad, but even from the beginning, my relationship with Bert only worked when he needed to rescue me from a warehouse full of bombs or unshackle me from the ocean rocks just before the tide came in. Maybe when my maybe when we first dated, before my father's diagnosis, when I pulled away, complained that he bought me flowers too often. Maybe I felt as if he were trying to rescue me when I didn't want to be rescued. Being the youngest in the family, feeling as if I had three parents instead of only two, I've resisted people doting on me, feeling as if they see me as incompetent, that they need to take care of me because I can't. When I fell into the infinite abyss, I did need to be taken care of because I could not care for myself. I needed him to drive me and my dog across the country, to fly back and forth from Wyoming to Florida, to marry me within months of knowing me, to hold my hand behind my dad's casket, to cradle me even as I dry heaved from the severity of my sobs. When I texted him that September asking if he would sit with me while I sobbed, maybe I was drawn to his need to rescue instead of to him. Over time, as I crawled out of it, elbow by elbow, I didn't need and didn't want his doting anymore. Maybe he felt like I was ripping the cape from his shoulders. Or maybe he started to heal too. Maybe he took his cape off himself. He dismissed me unless I was having a meltdown. He didn't understand why I kept having meltdowns. We struggled to compromise when our wants lived on opposite sides of the world. Every disagreement ended in lose-lose. After spending a year and a half of a not unhappy but not really happy life together, our lease term came up for renewal, and it felt like with our apartment, the lease term on our relationship came up for renewal as well. He didn't want to sign. Both relieved and bitter, I knew I didn't want to marry the wrong person, but I also didn't want to start over. I was willing to live with good enough. Bert was stable, reliable, put together, and trustworthy. Qualities I would not have attributed to any of my previous exes. I was okay having a good enough life together when all of my former relationships weren't good enough in the first place. Good enough was not good enough for Bert, though. He moved out of our apartment. I followed suit a couple months later. In hindsight, it is easy to see. It was just easier to have consistency and security rather than having to embark on the journey of dating again. Easier to accept I would exist in a laughless marriage because I knew the dishes would always be clean, and the dog would always be walked, and the shower head would never be caked over with lime, and when I came home from working a 12-hour shift, there'd be a decaf coffee waiting for me on the counter. I didn't want to be 34, wanting kids, having to start over. I probably would not start over with one person right away. There'd be the excess of Tinder matches who would be perfectly fine, who I'd have to meet first before I met someone who would do all the cooking, dance with me in the kitchen to Bobby Womack, who would make brilliantly bad puns, do all the vacuuming because I hate the sound of the vacuum, someone who would kiss my neck and send an electric current through my skin. We'd have to meet each other's families, have our first fight, decide to move in together, decorate, learn the ins and outs of one another's bodies and lives, love those ins and outs, learn each other's imperfections, love those imperfections. We'd have to do each other's laundry, learn each other's love languages. It'd all have to be perfect or at least good and not just good enough before we decided we wanted to bring another human into this world. Why go through all of that to risk not finding anyone? I'd rather have 50% of what I want right now and forever guaranteed than give it all up for the chance of someday having 100% when I could just as easily wind up with nothing and no one. If you know me, this is kind of funny reading this because, of course, I didn't end up alone, and I do have a beautiful, perfect child, and I have a very good life with a very good person. And it's funny because he doesn't do any cooking and I do all the cooking and we don't dance in the kitchen to Bobby Womack. And he does make some good puns. I do give him that, but I definitely do a good share of the vacuuming. So yeah. And I did go through an excess of Tinder matches before we got together, but I did not meet him on Tinder. Anyway. I'd rather have 50% of what I want right now and forever guaranteed than give it all up for the chance of someday having 100% when I could just as easily wind up with nothing and no one. I can't hold it against him for not feeling another typo. I can't hold it against him for not feeling the same way. Besides, maybe I was even less than half of what he wanted. In the end, we still respect one another. I never wondered where he was or who he was out with. We never called each other names. I never feared him, even when he was angry. I never worried he would lose control. He never stared at other women while we were out. I never had to pick him I never had to pick up after him. I never had to pick him up because he was too drunk to drive home. They just weren't great together. Instead of peanut butter and jelly, we were peanut butter and pizza. Great separately, maybe not so great as a pairing. So now we're friends, and that's perfectly okay. I am perfectly okay. I have found a new life purpose. A friend who also lost her father to cancer and I not only bonded over our father's dying, but also over finding healing from loss through poetry. I am grateful for our newfound closeness, for the new life I now have as a result of poetry, a life I never imagined, a life where, like my friend Lauren prophesied, I can remember that time my dad left my mother horrified after he ate a ramekin of butter at a nice restaurant just because I dared him to, and I can laugh about it. In a way, my dad lives on through my poems, through these poems. And if there is a balloon archway with a red and gold banner with healed blazoned across it, these poems inch me closer, one stanza, one line, one word at a time. Gloria Steinem said, "The final stage of healing is using what happens to you to help other people. That is healing in itself." Now that I am overlooking the valley from the summit of Mount Grief, I understand why so many people reached out to help in the beginning. Their help was a manifestation of their own healing. Help, it turns out, heals both the helper and the helped. Now I feel like I can navigate other cars on this highway, like the driver whose job it is to navigate traffic through a construction zone. I write about this grief. I speak about this grief. I make art about this grief. Being able to find meaning from the worst thing that ever happened in my life lets me know I am surviving now. I'm no longer floating with my chin above water, hoping a great white ends my misery. I wouldn't even say I'm simply treading water. I'm swimming. I'm swimming and enjoying each stroke forward. Whatever my curiosities are, I follow them, then figure out how I will use my curiosities to help other people. It doesn't numb the pain into oblivion, but it helps me feel like I can keep walking on this path of life, that my legs are no longer cement pillars. It helps me feel like I'm honoring my dad without letting myself slip through the quicksand of grief. And on some days, when my heart is open to it, it even brings me joy. Step 1, fuck off. Step 2, accept help. Step 3, cling to gratitude. Step 4, maintain control. Step 5, remember. Step 6, chaotically repeat. Step 7, find meaning. I knew I'd never see my father again after he died, but I asked him every night he spent in his hospice bed to please haunt me or send me signs from the other side. I didn't realize he was waiting for me on the moon. When I flew there in a hot air balloon one night, he stood smiling, full-bodied, when I opened the hatch. We bounded together, weightless, marveling at our bare feet caked in gray dust. I woke to the sound of my own laughter. Grateful, I figured out how to meet him halfway. Acknowledgements. Thank you to my parents, the kindest, most loving people I have yet to meet. I am beyond lucky to have been raised by two human beings who taught me through their living example what true love looks like. To my sister, my best friend, who never hesitated to be a sounding board for my poetry, this collection, and a million other things. To Adana Moriarty for introducing me to and insisting I apply to the Community Literature Initiative, for sharing your journey of grief with me, for healing with me side by side. To Hiram Sims, Tommy Domino, Andy Sanchez, Alex Petunia, Ravina Wadwani, and the entire Community Literature Initiative and Sims Library of Poetry teams for giving me the opportunity and support to build this collection. This collection would not have existed without you. To early readers of this collection who provided feedback on many of these poems, including Thistle Dunsmuir, Marissa Forbes, Christian Purfus, Evan Cummings, Jasmine Banks, Lola Wink, Caro Scott, Brenda Vaca, and others. Special shout out to my student and teaching assistant, Larissa Freitas, who calls me her poetry guru, but who is really my poetry guru, and whose insights truly made this collection what it is. And honestly, I was reading back these poems and I was just thinking to myself, like, thank you, Larissa, for showing me
where I needed to have, like, more imaginative language, her guidance, like, her suggestions for revisions made this collection what it is, really. To Danielle Mitchell and the Poetry Lab team for providing a creative space to nurture my craft and be among like-minded artists. Creativity begets creativity. To Shelley Holder for inviting me into her 30 for 30 class in a time when I needed it the most. To Amanda Eke, Kristen Abraham, Aaron Wallace, Taya Mutanji, Nancy Turner Stevenson, Noah Autumn Choi, Torne Greathouse, I.S. Jones, and Natalie Albert, my teachers and mentors who helped me develop my craft. To David Ramvet, Juan Morales, Jonathan Fink, Matt Daly, and Lori Cutchins for in-depth critique and feedback on many poems that made it into this collection. To Connie Waneke of Jackson Hole Writers for hosting the monthly poetry group whose feedback contributed to many pieces in this collection. To Passengers Journal, Room Magazine, Wyoming Arts Council, and Brooklyn Poets for providing support that led to pieces in this collection. To Raven White and Curious Corbett Publishing for believing in this collection and for believing in me as a poet. I am eternally grateful to you for giving me my first full-length manuscript in print. To Angelica Singer, Yuya Kiyuchi, Emily Hager, Kayla Marilis, Lauren Paulo, Jesse Watsaba, Robert Moreno, and Alex Hart for believing in me. To Matt Steck for being the love of my life. If you made it this far, thank you so much for staying with me, and I'm going to reward you with a couple of poems that didn't make it into this collection because I wrote them after they were published. Another dream in which my father is dead. It's one of those places people come to watch the game, any game, whatever game, and they've come tonight to this black barn like I've come with my old friend, the one I met hitchhiking in Iceland when my father was still alive. We weave through the people, my friend and I, looking for a place to sit, and I see my father at a high-top table alone. I can't elbow my way through the crowd fast enough. My mind in eddy. See? I knew it had been a mistake this whole time. I reach the man, and he retreats from his perch, apologizing in a language I don't recognize. He is much shorter than my father was, and now I see this man's face is slimmer than my father's, though not brighter. He thinks I'm asking him to leave, to not take up so much space in his loneliness. I try French, désolé, désolé, then Portuguese, desculpa, desculpa, then give up trying. Let my tears plead for me. Please, just let me look at you. He sits at the table, newspaper open, his back to me, my arms like a shawl around his shoulders. I weep into his neck. Even my dreams know my father's dead. No, he's only visiting. That poem I wrote, the Sijo form, and it won second place in an international Sijo competition the day that my son was born. I kiss the tree by his grave, imagining maybe Maple's roots have met my father already, wrapping her fingers around his urn interred in maroon velvet. I wish, too, to be in two places at once, both with the worms and with the birds, like a tree, to be so many things to so many, the way my father was, the way he also is often in two places at once, both under that gravestone and in my dreams. If I cannot hold hands with him, I want to hold hands with the one holding his hand. How dare the lilacs bloom again? How dare the cicadas crawl out from their burial grounds, then their own skin, just to fly to the highest branch and chant their primal rhythms? How dare the cardinals whoop? How dare the golden retriever puppy stretch its paws in the grass at the park, roll onto its back and yip for the tennis ball to be thrown again and again and once more? How dare the cafes open shop? How dare people wait in line for their lattes and macchiatos, lifting their noses to the aroma without even realizing they are, breathing it in, breathing it out? How dare I birth this perfect baby? How dare he reach for me, mouth open in a toothless smile, with a squint the same shape as his grandfather's, and laugh and coo and be? September came as harbinger, as it has done before, pulling from our laughter a silence, pulling from our Marian sky the shadow rinsing dark, leaving me to wonder if I inherited the cells that killed my father, if I gave them to my son, whom I'm watching roar as he slaps an alligator that also is a piano with his starfish hands, slimy from his still toothless smile. Labor ward. He finds my breath. Labor ward. He finds my breast within seconds of breathing, and the room softens. Nurses disperse. The doctor sews my vulva back together, my blood still pouring out onto the bed. I gasp, thank you, to the ceiling tiles, hoping if there are somehow angels, my father is one, and he is floating just there above us. Well, that's all I have. I don't know if even a single person joined even for a second, but this was really good for me to do, even if nobody came or listened, and even if nobody watches ever. I'm glad that this exists. And for all the people who need an audiobook version of this book to be more accessible, I hope that this can be that. So thank you. I appreciate all of you for holding space for me, whether now or in the future. Have a good night.